Welcome back, Addicts, to another comic-related video. I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking about the newest Spider-Man series written by Nick Spencer and drawn by Ryan Ottley. This has a lot of stuff going on in the first issue. We do get to see more of Peter in this one rather than Spider-Man, but we do get to see both of his worlds and how they're relating to one another. There's a lot of things that we get a lot of details about, or I guess I should say more of a sneak peek of what's gone on in this world. So jumping right into it, we actually start off the issue with a flashback of Peter and MJ together. It's labeled, as Peter's narrating, he's labeling it as one of the happiest moments in his life. So we get to see right off the bat that they have had a really deep connection. They're not just starting off dating. But they're not currently dating at this moment in the current timeline of the story. But we do get to see also him in the symbiote suit, which tells us right off the bat that this is a older Peter. This is a more experienced Spider-Man. Things have happened in his life already, so he's not just starting out, which personally, that's my favorite stories, or my ideal Spider-Man, I guess you could say. So already I was into it. So we get on to in the issue. I'm gonna break it down to talk about Peter's life, then Spider-Man. So we get to see exactly where Peter's living. He's not living with Aunt May. He's not living by himself. He's actually has some roommates, which one of them is Robbie's son, Randy, and also the villain Boomerang, aka Fred Myers, which we find out that Peter lets him stay as a third roommate to get more details on his other supervillain persona. Now, we get to see exactly where Peter works. He actually is working at the Daily Bugle, but he's not taking pictures of Spider-Man anymore. He's actually a science editor for the Bugle, and we get to see that in action as he goes to the ESU campus to check up on a new science story. Now, at the ESU, there's actually some important things that happen here, because as he's at Empire State, they're showing off a new program called Watcher that's supposed to help students be, I guess, better students, and also prevent students from doing certain things like plagiarism. And while Peter's there, they know that the person presenting the Watcher program actually knows that he's there, so they want him to come up to demo this new program that they're making. And in that scenario, they are actually scanning his final term, which coincidentally turns out to be plagiarized, because this story actually relates to Superior Spider-Man, because they are said that it was completely plagiarized because it was written by Doc Ock, or Octavius, and so yeah, we just get to see that messes Peter's life up when things were going well for him. He actually gets his diploma revoked, and later on in the issue, Robbie actually fires him because they don't want the bad press. So that is about all I'll say about Peter's story until the very end, because as it's showing us slices of Peter's life, it's flashing back and forth with the, I guess you could say, main event of the issue, which is an alien invasion that's taking over New York, and it has so many Marvel heroes in there. It's quite amazing how many they were able to fit on page, and it's really cool. We get some cool banners between all of the heroes, but we get to see I guess before Peter actually gets involved in this fight, he's on his way there. He gets to see that Kingpin is mayor, which, if I remember right, it says that he's up for re-election, but I could be wrong. It could be that he's just now running. But that's an interesting thing, that Kingpin is mayor. But as he gets to the site where all of the aliens are pouring out of portals, he actually figures out a way to stop them, and in terms of the events that are going on, he's the only one around that's able to do it because the aliens are piling up so much. And so he actually gets in there and he figures out that, oh, it's Mysterio just playing mind games again. So he takes care of Mysterio, and in a moment he thinks that he's going to die before he actually before he realizes it's Mysterio. And it makes him think of MJ and what's really important. And at the tail end of the issue, we actually get to see them reunite and be a couple again. Now, getting onto the second issue, we're going to do both issues if I didn't already say that. Getting onto the second issue, we lead off with Mountain Marco and the Ringer. Spider-Man just beating up on them, taking them out. And then we get to flashback with Peter being at home with MJ and them just enjoying themselves until Peter has to start his day. Which Peter has to go and figure out the situation that happened with his diploma, because nobody's going to want to take him for a job, and he got fired, but Robbie said that he would let him back in if it got resolved. So he gets to the campus, and they are willing to give him a second chance. There was actually somebody that personally requested for it, and so they're on their way to one of the classrooms to figure out, or Peter's going to figure out what exactly that means. And we get to see that Doc Connors is actually teaching a class, but he's not teaching it as himself, but as the Lizard, which I don't think we've seen that before, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that was a really interesting deal. The way that they explain it is there's an inhibitor chip that's placed on the back of Connors' neck, and it lets him retain his human mind in his lizard form, and it also prevents the lizard from attacking anybody, or if he tries to, it will paralyze Connors to where he can't move. But we get to see exactly why Connors wants Peter to work there and why he's giving him a second chance. He knows that he's helped him before and everything, so he basically put in the good word for Peter to be able to have a second chance. But he also wants his help with the isotope accelerator because it is currently in his possession, and he's trying to work out a way to reverse the effects that the accelerator had, which, if I remember right, he says that it's to help with his scenario, because I don't necessarily know if he's wanting it to reverse him back to where he doesn't have to transform into the lizard, but yeah, it's related to that. So actually at this time we get to see Taskmaster and Black Ant. They're actually on the campus and apparently after the accelerator, and so they barge into the room, and Peter does some quick thing because there's classmates all around for Connors' class, and when Connors goes, he gets paralyzed because he can't be hostile to anybody, and so Peter does some quick thinking and uses his scientific knowledge to make like a smoke screen out of the chemicals in the room, which we get to see Spider-Man show up and whoop Taskmaster and Black Ant. But the kicker is Spider-Man and Peter are in the same room at the same time, and that's how the end of the issue is, leading them both there. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that we did actually get confirmation that they're taking, I guess, past events from certain storylines. For instance, the Spider-Man 2015, they're taking some of that because in this, I guess, what am I trying to think? Not storyline, but universe. He has made Parker Industries, but he's already failed at that and gone back to doing other things. And then we also got the hint of Superior Spider-Man in the first issue, correlating between when Doc Ock took over his body, but then later took a clone of Peter. And I think that's probably what they're going for in the second issue, is to see that it's just Otto Octavius. And I don't know if I would assume that the real Peter is the one that wasn't suited up as Spider-Man, because he's remembering about when the isotope accelerator changed the spider that bit him while Connors is talking about it. So I think that is the real Peter, and the one suited up as Spider-Man is actually Octavius. which we don't know if they're going to do something else, but since they already mentioned it in the first issue, I feel like there is some correlation there. But anyway, that's all that happened in the first 2 issues. I'm going to go into a little bit of a discussion just to give you my ideas of it and some things I liked. One of the things that I wanted to read this for was not only because I'm a Spider-Man fan, a huge Spider-Man fan. Actually, if you guys don't know, Spider-Man is one of my favorite characters. I would say Spider-Man and Deadpool are my favorite superheroes. But it also has probably my favorite non-Marvel or DC superhero, which is Invincible. Not in it, but we get a correlation between it because Ryan Ottley actually drew the artwork for Invincible. And it's just cool seeing it. It's like kind of ironic because Ryan Ottley actually drew Spider-Man in Invincible during a certain story arc. So it's just cool to see it come like a full circle around. But it was kind of weird seeing Peter and MJ first in this drawing style. Because, I mean, I can clearly tell some differences to where, like, oh yeah, that's his Peter and that's his MJ. But they look so close to Mark and Eve from Invincible that I was like, oh, it just looks like Mark dyed his hair. But anyway, that was just one of the things. I do really like the art style. I don't know if I could say it's as good as some other Spider-Man comics, because some of the other people that have done Spider-Man comics in the past, some of their shots have looked really badass. So I don't know necessarily where I would rank it, but overall I like it. I know he can do some spectacular different types of drawing, whether it be gore or different types of aliens or monsters or stuff like that. So I'm really curious to see some of the designs or just his art style in general. But another thing that really I like in a Spider-Man story is a more experienced Spider-Man. I don't want it to get through the wrong idea. I like that they keep the origin the same, but I like stories that focus on a Spider-Man that is a bit older, out of high school, like he's either in college or out of college. And I don't know why, that's always been the ideal Spider-Man in my head. It could be because the first things that I was exposed to was the 90s cartoon of Spider-Man, and then also the Sam Raimi movies that had that. But I don't know. It's just one of those things that, since it is my preference, I like to see that the story uses that. As far as some other things, I like the groundwork that they're laying for the stories. It seems like they're spreading some Easter eggs here and there, or some setups of story arcs. They even had a villain tease at the end of issue 2, which I didn't talk about because I want to leave some surprises for you guys if you haven't read it yet. But yeah, there's just a lot of those that are really nice to see. The only thing I'm really hesitant on right now is just to see if they're going to have some maturity to this. And what I mean is like some more serious, some more dramatic, like dark stories. Like I don't know if they're going to bounce in between that, or if this is going to be a really lighthearted take on Spider-Man, which I'm totally fine with. I mean, Spider-Man is an upbeat character. But that's just one of those things. I like it when they can go extreme one way or the other in one contained story. So that's probably the only thing I really want to see, that I'm not sure if it's going to have that vibe. But overall, I would say I really did like these first 2 issues. I'm going to give it a solid worth it. Just because, like I said, it's got some really good elements, but since we don't know everything that this story is going to be like, that leaves me, I'm like almost over the fence, but I'm still on it. So yeah, I would say solid worth it. You guys should go check it out, see if it's for, if you guys will like it. If you're a Spider-Man thing, I think you'll like it. It's got a lot of cool things, callbacks to other comics, and also with the it gives a very classic vibe because it's going back to the basics. Like all of his villains, or at least OG villains, have their iconic original type attire. They hadn't really changed them too much, and so that is just another really cool thing to see in this art style. But anyway, guys, that's all I'm going to talk about for this video. Be sure to stay tuned because I will be reviewing this series as of right now. And also, there's a new Deadpool series that I haven't been able to read yet, but I really do want to, so expect that sometime. As always, we got our other content coming. If you're into games, I'm also going to be reviewing the Spider-Man game when it comes out in September. So be tuned. Be sure to stay tuned for that. And if you like, TV, movies, we got it all here. So I'll put links in the description in case you want to go check out some of that other stuff. But anyway, guys, we'll just see you later. Later, Addicts.